With the media bill. Now, the draft media bill was published in March, but this is now starting to make progress, and we've had a speech from the Secretary of State for Digital Culture, Media and Sport to tell us all about it. But before we go into the details of this, I just wanted to go through a little bit of history, because, of course, going back to 2018, we had the wonderful Matt Hancock launching the Cairn Cross Review. Now, this is a review into the press, the print press mainly. And this was because he was very concerned about, as you can see on the quote here, he was very concerned about disinformation, also known as fake news. But he was also very concerned that the mainstream press was not able to compete with the disruptive new media organizations that were coming out at that time, that they were losing ad revenue. And also that social media companies weren't providing them with sufficient revenue to keep them going. So he was very worried that they were going to actually go out of business. So anyway, put him back on screen here for a second. The first area he said that I want to look into is accuracy, and he's talking about disinformation. And then he went on to say if an individual published it online, it would be untouched by media regulation. So he's very concerned that small journalists, not big corporations, in other words, can effectively compete with the mainstream media. And then he went on to say, I tremble at the thought of a media regulated by the state. Now, that he's actually trembling with excitement there, I'm quite certain. That's what he meant by that. In a time of malevolent forces in politics, I get this wrong, and I fear for the future of our liberal democracy. Well, he was very excited about leveling the playing field, leveling up here. The Cairn Cross Review, he said, will explore whether intervention may be required to safeguard the future of our free and independent press. And of course, they did intervene. They intervened during the COVID period by absolutely bombarding the mainstream media with advertising revenue to a degree they hadn't seen for a very long time. Now, in parallel with that, then, of course, we saw the Online Harms White Paper come out, and this eventually became the Online Safety Bill, and that eventually became the Online Safety, or is just about to become the Online Safety Act. So this is back in 2018, and the government is unveiling tough new measures to ensure the UK is the safest place in the world to be online. And part of the thing that they were talking about was online disinformation, but more importantly, they were talking about fines for companies. We've mentioned that in the last couple of days, but they were also talking about the equalising the playing field for the BBC and other public service broadcasters as opposed to alternative media broadcasters, which brings us then to the media bill. And here it is. In fact, the bill hasn't been formally published yet. There is a draft, but this is the House of Commons library briefing on it. And this is the bit that I want to highlight because the media bill, they say, was included in the background briefing notes to the Queen's speech of the 10th of May, 2022. According to the briefing notes, the bill would, among other things, enable the sale of Channel 4, update the UK's public broadcasting framework for the digital age. This is the key one, enable Ofcom to introduce a video on demand code to protect UK audiences from harmful material. Of course, the government has now announced that Channel 4 is going to remain in public ownership, but it's this aspect of the video on demand code that I want to discuss here. Because if we go back, not that you could possibly forget, Brian, if we go back to 2014, the UK column became the target of an organisation called ATVOD. This was the Authority for Television on Demand. And this was a small, limited company that was tasked by Ofcom to regulate on-demand content. And they were regulating things like Amazon Prime and whatnot, but also regulating the pornography industry in the UK. But they decided, following a complaint from someone who remains anonymous to us, about our coverage of the Holly Gregg sexual abuse scandal, that somebody complained about us, and ATVOD decided that we needed to be regulated. So they approached us and sent us various demands to register with them. And if we weren't prepared to register with them, they were going to fine us a significant amount of money. What happened then was that we decided not to be regulated with them. We took down all our content from YouTube at the time and made some content which explained what ATVOD was and so on. As a result, ATVOD received quite a number of telephone calls from the general public, from our viewers and listeners, And as a result of that, some months afterwards, ATVOD was in fact shut down, and the regulation of video on demand content was taken over once again by Ofcom. Now, the whole notion of, because what ATVOD had attempted to say to us was, well, you're very television-like, and therefore you're competing for your news coverage with the BBC. And I said, this is ridiculous. How can you possibly be suggesting that we're competing with a £4 billion corporation? But they weren't prepared to accept that argument and still attempted now to regulate. Now that regulatory threat has disappeared since 2014, but it's now back. And I think this is a major danger if it goes through in the media bill. Now, there was a significant response to the online safety bill, which resulted in the removal of the whole concept of legal but harmful content, which was undefined and would be regulated by the online safety bill. Nonetheless, the online safety bill still has a lot in it which is pretty negative as far as freedom of speech is concerned, and it has passed. I would suggest that people really need to start getting organized around the media bill now and prevent this, because what this is about is leveling the playing field for legacy media, which really shouldn't exist anymore, and keeping them going while dealing with and pushing smaller organizations such as UK Column, but many, many others, under a regulatory burden that they couldn't really sustain.
Yeah, and just to reinforce the fact that it was, in fact, thousands of calls that ATVOD received that finally, I think, pushed them over the edge, and they went quiet and were subsequently taken over. So it was the polite action of many, many UK Column viewers that took on ATVOD that actually caused that dynamic whereby they quietly disappeared from view. And I think this is the reality for the future, because there's no doubt UK Column and other outlets are going to be attacked by a government which doesn't want any counter opinion or criticism of its actions or policies.
Yes. So one of the things that the government is doing, up to the point where they lay the legislation formally in Parliament, they've launched a consultation on the regulation of additional electronic program guides. So let's just look at the summary of this. They're saying, given the landscape of changing technology and increasing risk to audiences of unregulated content appearing on television, the government is consulting on whether and how to use existing powers that allow it to update which electronic program guides are regulated in the UK. This could result in more consistent protections for audiences and level the playing field with traditional broadcasters who are already required to follow Ofcom regulations. So you very much get the theme here. This is about leveling what they would like to say is leveling the playing field. The fact that the budgets are so different in these cases, of course, is irrelevant to them. So anyway, I suggest that everybody reads this consultation, and if they'd like to take part in it, it ends on the 15th of October. Was it 15th of October? Sorry, 15th of November. Well, there are various ways to respond. You can respond online. You can respond to the email address on screen at the moment, or to the physical address.
Okay, thank you for that, Mike. Well, it's serious times, because many people say to us, what is going to happen in the future? And we've always looked into the future with the knowledge, really, that the regulators are going to come for anybody who dares challenge the government line. And that's what we're absolutely seeing from this. Well,